What's up, guys? Welcome to February 11th, but we will be starting on the 8th since I've not done one since the 8th. I feel, I don't know, it's like, I feel really bad. It's like I desire to know God more, but then it's like I act in ways that are not what we call like motivated to know God. It's like I don't really want to read the Bible. At times, it's just, I don't know, I'm just frustrated with myself. It's like, because I know the experience of what I long for the experience whenever I read the Bible. It's like this feeling and like the feeling of like God talking to me when I'm reading the Bible. I just feel like I don't know why it's like so hard for me to stay committed to reading. Also, it's like I'm not able to sleep right now, so I want to see how much I can knock, like how much I could read tonight before God basically tells me go to sleep, dude. So yeah, let's get started with February the 8th. We're starting in the halfway through Exodus chapter 22. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to anyone and has sex with her, he must pay the customary bride price and marry her. But if her father refuses to let him marry her, the man must still pay him an amount equal to the bride price of a virgin. You must not allow a sorceress to live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal must certainly be put to death. Anyone who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. You must not mistreat or oppress foreigners in any way. Remember, you are foreigners. Remember, you yourselves were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must not exploit a widow or an orphan. If you exploit them in any way and they cry out to me, then I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will blaze against you, and I will kill you with the sword. Then your wives will be widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to any of my people who are in need, do not charge interest as a money lender would. If you take your neighbor's cloak as security for a loan, you must return it before sunset. This cloak may be the only blanket your neighbor has. How can a person sleep without it? If you do not return it, and your neighbor cries out to me for help, then I will hear, for I am merciful. You must not dishonor God or curse any of your rulers. You must not hold anything back when you give me offerings from your crops and your wine. You must give me your firstborn sons. You must also give me the firstborn of your cattle, sheep, and goats. But leave the firstborn animal with its mother for 7 days, then give it to me on the 8th day. You must be my holy people. Therefore do not eat any animal that has been torn up or killed by wild animals. Throw it to the dogs. Chapter 23. You must not pass along false rumors. You must not cooperate with evil people by lying on the witness stand. You must not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you are called to testify in a dispute, do not be swayed by the crowd to twist justice, and do not slant your testimony in favor of a person just because that person is poor. If you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey that has been strayed away, take it back to its owner. If you see that the donkey of someone hates you, as has collapsed under its load, do not walk by. Instead, stop and help. In a lawsuit, you must not deny justice to the poor. Be sure never to charge anyone falsely with evil. Never sentence an innocent or blameless person to death, for I never declare a guilty person to be innocent. Or take no bribes, for a bribe makes you ignorant. makes you ignore something that you clearly see. A bribe makes a righteous person twist the truth. You must not oppress foreigners. You know what it's like to be a foreigner yourself. Or to be a foreigner, for you yourself were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. Plant and harvest your crops for 6 years, but let the land be renewed and uncultivated and lie uncultivated during the 7th year. Then let the poor among you harvest whatever grows on its own. Leave the rest for wild animals to eat. The same applies to your vineyards and olive groves. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but on the 7th day you must stop working. This gives your ox and your donkey a chance to rest. It also allows your slaves and the foreigners live among you to be refreshed. Pay close attention to all your instructions. You must not call on the name of any other gods. Do not even speak their names. Each year you must celebrate 3 festivals in my honor. First, celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days, the bread you eat must be made without yeast. Just as I recommended you, celebrate this festival annually at an appointed time in early spring. In the month of Abib, for that is the anniversary appointed time in early spring. For that is the anniversary of your departure from Egypt. No one may appear before me without an offering. Second, celebrate the festival of harvest. When you bring me the first crops of your harvest, finally celebrate the festival of the final harvest. At the end of the harvest season, when you have harvested all the crops from your fields. At these 3 times each year, every man in Israel must appear before the sovereign, the Lord. You must not offer the blood of your sacrificial offerings together with any baked goods containing yeast, and do not leave the fat from the harvest or from the festival offerings until the next morning. As you harvest your crops, bring the very best of the first harvest to the house of the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. See, I am sending an angel before you to protect you on your journey and lead you safely to the place I have prepared for you. Pay close attention to him and obey his instructions. Do not rebel against him, for he is my representative, and he will not forgive your rebellion. But if you are careful to obey him, following all my instructions, then I will be an enemy to your enemies, and I will oppose those who oppose you. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, so you may live there. And I will destroy them completely. You must not worship the gods of these nations or serve them in any way or imitate their evil practices. Instead, you must utterly destroy them and smash their sacred pillars. You must not serve only the Lord your God. You must serve only the Lord your God. If you do, I will bless you with food and water, and I will protect you from illness. There will be no miscarriages or infertility in your land, and I will give you long, full lives. I will send my terror ahead of you and create panic among all the people whose lands you invade. I will make all your enemies turn and run. I will send terror ahead of you to drive out the Hivites, Canaanites, and Hittites. But I will not drive them out in a single year, because the land would become desolate and the wild animals would multiply and threaten you. I will drive them out a little at a time until your population has increased enough to take possession of the land. And I will fix your boundaries from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the eastern wilderness to the Euphrates River. I will hand you over to the people now living in the land, and you will drive them out ahead of you. No, make no treaties with them or their gods. They must not live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me. If you serve their gods, you'll be caught in the trap of idolatry. Chapter 24. Then the Lord instructed Moses, "Come up here to me, and bring along Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of Israel's elders. All of you must worship from a distance. Only Moses is allowed to come near to the Lord. The others must not come near, and none of the other two people are allowed to climb up the mountain with him." When Moses went up to the people and repeated all the instructions and regulations the Lord had given them, all the people answered with one voice, "We will do everything the Lord has commanded." Then Moses carefully wrote down all the Lord's instructions. Early the next morning, Moses got up and built an altar at the foot of the mountain. He also set up 12 pillars, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent some of the young Israelite men to present burnt offerings and to sacrifice bulls as peace offerings to the Lord. Moses drained half the blood from these animals into basins. The other half he splattered against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it out loud to the people. Again, they all responded, "We will do everything the Lord has commanded. We will obey." Then Moses took the blood from the basin and splattered it over the people, declaring, "Look, this blood confirms the covenant the Lord has made with you in giving you these instructions." Then Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel climbed up the mountain. There they saw the God of Israel under his feet. There seemed to be a surface of brilliant blue lapis lazuli, as clear as the sky itself. And though these nobles of Israel gazed upon God, he did not destroy them. In fact, they ate a covenant meal, eating and drinking in his presence. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain, stay there, and I will give you the tablets of stone on which I have inscribed the instructions and commandments, so you can teach the people." So Moses and his assistant Joshua set out, and Moses climbed up the mountain of God. Moses told the elders, "Stay here and wait for us until we come back. Aaron and Hur are here with you. If anyone has a dispute while I am gone, consult with them." Then Moses climbed up the mountain, and the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled down on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day, the Lord called to Moses from inside the cloud. To the Israelites at the foot of the mountain, the glory of the Lord appeared at the summit like a consuming fire. Then Moses disappeared into the cloud as he climbed higher up the mountain. He climbed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. And so that's the end for February 8th. Again, it's a lot about God just giving instructions to people back then, but I'm just trying to relate this into our modern time, which is kind of hard to do, because this is kind of the interesting thing. It's like, why is that in our modern time there are laws that, like in the Christian world, why there are laws in the Christian world that we use in the Bible? Like, let me rephrase that. Okay, so there are some laws within the Old Testament, like in the book of Exodus, that we modern Christians follow, while there are also practices and laws that we don't follow. I just don't understand like why we choose to follow some and not others. I don't know if that makes sense. Right? And so like I don't know, it's like chapter 12, chapter 22 is interesting. Just like starting right off when he says, if a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to anyone and has sex with her, he must pay the customary bride price and marry her. It's like that kind of verse, like seduce. That's probably means like forcing, which literally means like rape, to be honest. And so with like these verses, it's like, I mean, obviously, like those rules we know we should not do, so we don't follow it. We follow that kind of rule, like we don't want to go about raping people, obviously. But it's like then it says like he must pay the customary bride price and marry her. That part confuses me because it's like, why is that? Like, I've heard stories of Christians, corrupt pastors in the world that unfortunately use the position of being a pastor into taking advantage of people. And so I've heard stories of male pastors who had sex, who like maybe not like maybe they did have sex. I'm not sure, but like I know they definitely have like inappropriate sex talks and stuff. It's like those things, like I don't know. It just those are just like yeah. It's like sex when it comes to sex in the Old Testament, it's pretty dark, just for the lack of better terms. But yeah, I don't know why I was going there. Because in the beginning I was just saying how like I just don't understand how it's like Christians who gets to decide which rules from the Old Testament we get to follow and which ones we could dismiss. So that's all I have to say. But anyways, I'm mad. Yeah, obviously we know humans shouldn't have sex with animals. That's pretty clear. Yeah, anyone who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Verse 20 of chapter 22. That's kind of an interesting verse for me because it's like sacrifices. You could like use that word like in like a literally means like you could take it literally, which is like go kill an animal and name it like say I'm dedicating this animal to a certain person, to a certain god. But like I could use that word sacrifice as like into like I guess like a better like if I were to replace the word sacrifices to like use something like anyone who commits to another god other than the Lord must be destroyed. It's like, and the thing is like God, with it being lowercase, there could be so many things you could put into the category of being a god. You could put it as like a phone could be a god, technology could be a god. You could see your spouse as a god, or you could see a team as a god. It's like there's so many things you could put under the category of a lowercase god. And that's like, God does not tolerate that kind of worship because none of those things created you. It's the only person that we should all be glorifying is God, the Heavenly Father, Jesus. That's who we should be glorifying, not Satan, not things of this world and things. And so yeah, obviously this is actually verse 21 is like, you must not mistreat or oppress foreigners in any way. That part is also interesting to me because it's like, for me, it's like as I'm trying to think, is like, how can we as Christians not be mistreating people who may have a different opinions than us? That maybe like show love to them no matter what. So that's kind of an interesting question and stuff. Who is the foreign people? Who would you in your who in your life would you say as a foreigner to you that you're kind of mistreating? Does that make sense? I don't know, that makes no sense. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's just a lot of rules that I don't fully understand. But obviously we cannot dishonor God. Curse. Do you guys see curse and cussing as two of the same? I mean, would you put them under the same category of do not cuss? Like, if you were to, it's okay for me to say you must not dishonor God or cuss any of your rulers. Do you think it's okay for me to use the word cuss, or do you think there's like a different, or do you think there's like a major difference between the word cursing and cussing? And so yeah, I really want to focus on verse 29. He says, "You must not hold anything back when you give me offerings from your crops and your wine. You must give me your firstborn sons." That I truly believe this, guys. I don't think you can, because because we believe in God, right? Because we believe in God, we verbally declared our dedication to God. I truly do not think you can be clinging onto something else while still claiming to be God, right? Because when you claim to be God, when through baptism, you're supposed to be a new transformation. You cannot still hold on to your old life, because the old life that you are holding on to, the things that you're holding on to in the past, those are the things that's gonna get you. I want to say killed, as much of it's a stumbling block for you, because it's blocking your relationship with God, right? It's like, what does it mean to fully let go of what does it mean to fully let go of the past and be fully solely dedicated on God? So I guess that's the best way for me to put it. Because God wants our full self. He does not want part of us. He does not want 99% of us. He does not want 50% of us. He wants our 100% self. So we don't need to keep on clinging on to the past. As a backup, can we walk in faith, walk forwards without looking back, saying, God, I trust you. And let the things that happened in the past stay in the past. So yeah, that's the thing that I just want to kind of point out. What else was I trying to do? Obviously God is saying you cannot spread rumors about people. Do not work with evil people. And this is actually interesting in verse 9 or verse 3 of chapter 23, where he says, "And do not slant your testimony in favor of a person just because that person is poor." That just it's I mean, this is very controversial, because I don't fully understand, because it's like that because of someone being poor, it's as a reason for why they do it. It's like, is it right for someone to steal because their family is poor? Right? It's like, I don't think it's right for you to steal, but is it acceptable? I guess it's a better term, because you're poor, because you're doing it out of a good motivation. I don't think it is, because at the end of the day, you did commit a crime, which is stealing, right? There could have been other ways you could have gone around it. You could have asked for support and stuff, but to go stealing about it, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. There's always another way, guys, of doing things. You don't have to go down the dark path of stealing, of murdering, of lusting, of lying. There are other ways to go about something. If you made a mistake, there are other ways to go about it than just to make it worse. So unfortunately, it's like, oh yeah, verse 5 of chapter 23 says, if you see that the donkey of someone who hates you has collapsed under its load, do not walk by. Instead, stop and help. That verse actually that stood out to me a lot, because does that sound familiar to you? The story of the Good Samaritan? Because the person, I forgot who it was. I think it's like an Israelite who got injured. And then it's like the whole idea is like back then the Jewish, their enemy are the Samaritans, and so the fact that they helped their enemy, which shows like, I feel like Jesus kind of maybe used this verse to make up the story of the Good Samaritan. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say make up, because it could have well happened and stuff. But yeah, I just found that fascinating in verse 5 of chapter 23, where I feel like that kind of ties into the Good Samaritan. If you see that the donkey of someone who hates you has collapsed under its load, do not walk by. Instead, stop and help. It's like helping somebody who hates you. And then it's like, that is like almost like linear to, it's like parallel to the Good Samaritan, to the story of the Good Samaritan and stuff. So yeah, I am very challenged by verse 8, where he says, take no bribes, for a bribe makes you ignore something that you see clearly. A bribe makes even a righteous person twist the truth. That's what Satan does, guys. Satan likes to tell us scriptures, like to say, oh, this is who God is, but like they will sprinkle some lies into the truth. It's like, that part is like, it's something we all humans struggle with, right? It's like, we don't want to, because Satan, he's not gonna like directly tell us, go kill somebody for the sake of killing. He's not gonna tell us that. He's gonna go around saying like, oh, the reason why you should kill this person is because they've done something to your family, and to all that stuff. And I feel like it's like, and then we'll say like, oh, if you kill this person, then like you don't have to deal with them again. It's like those terrible lies. Like Satan's like are so good at deceiving people who does not have God living within them. It's like, yeah, it's really hard. It's like, Satan could bribe you with money, with housing, with financial aid, with good health, with what else? With a girlfriend, boyfriend. It's like, it's property. It's like, with bribes, I think the thing that we have to be really conscious about is like, when you take a bribe, you're doing that out of selfishness out because of your family, or because of for yourself, for your family, or for yourself. And in doing that, in bribing for some, like whenever you take a bribe, not only are you being selfish, but in doing so, you are actually negatively affecting someone else. And so before you take a bribe, not only do you ask the personal question, am I being selfish by doing this, right? But also ask the question, who am I going to be harming for doing this, for choosing this decision, right? And so like, let's say like cheating, like let's say you cheat on a test, right? I know this friend really, God blessed me with this friend at school. She is such a great person, one who really fears God and who really wants to dedicate her life to God. I'm not gonna mention anybody's name, but yeah. One of the things that she said that really stood out to me is that somebody, like a whole class cheated on the test, and she felt terrible because she failed while everybody else passes the test. And I told her, it's like, at the end of the day, she is the winner over somebody else, over the rest of the class, because she actually stayed true to what a test is supposed to be, which is not to look at your phone and look up the answers. And so, like, me bringing up that question, I want you to get that example, because like when we cheat on a test, yes, not only is it selfish in a way where like we are self-gaining, it's like ability to pass a test that we did not deserve to pass, but it's like also it's negatively affecting someone else, because if you're passing, you're making somebody else feel terrible about themselves. And understand you didn't do it out of evil, out of self, like out of your like terrible intentions, but you have to understand, it's like, because you cheated, you are negatively affecting somebody else. And so that's the thing with bribing. It's like you are doing something out of selfishness, whether you know it or not. You are negatively affecting someone else, and so you be very cautious about bribing, like bribing somebody else or being bribed. You have to be spiritually strong to have the discernment of asking God, is this what honors God the most? And so yeah, that's what I want to really kind of bring it out into the story and things. But yeah, as we keep moving forward, yeah, the kind of the rest of the story kind of talks about how like the 3 annual festivals, then the promise, like God promising that He will always be there, that the people of Israel have to listen to His angels if they want to stay true, if they want God to stay with them. And here is where it gets really interesting for me. In verse 27 of chapter 23, where He says, I will send my terror. Wait, no, not that. Okay, yeah, 29. He says, but I will not drive them out in a single year, referring to the Hivites, Canaanites, and Hittites. He says, I will not drive them out in a single day, because the land would become desolate, and the wild animals will multiply and threaten you. So back then, the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites are enemies of the Israelites, right? And so with them being in the land, they're occupying the promised land. There are the obstacles that's getting in the way of them being able to reach that promised land. And so with that, I feel like that really spoke to me, because it's like the Hivites and the Canaanites and the Hittites are like a pain to the Israelites. And so I just realized in my heart, I feel like this is what God is telling me. It's like, David, the reason why you are going through these hard things, why you're going through difficult times, is because I'm protecting you from even worse consequences that could happen to you. I'm delaying this time, right? You have to trust my time, because if we were to go by the time that you want to go by, you would get injured worse, right? Because I am not being patient, because I'm not patient enough to wait for God's timing to help me prevent something that could be even worse from happening. So because we have to think about this, guys. Whenever we suffer, by the way, if you're suffering, I'm so sorry that you're suffering. Please let me know if you are, and I would love to pray for you all. But anyways, please hear me out here. The reason why you are currently suffering, and the extent of how long it's causing you to suffer, how long you've been in a state of suffering, may you know that may you trust God that He's doing this because He's protecting you from something that's worse, right? He's trying to help you to avoid. He's trying to go ahead before you, try to clean out flesh out some of the worst things that could happen to you, so that once you come into the place that He has designed you to be at, that you may flourish under it, and that you may not be more in even worse of a situation. And so that's the thing, that can we stay faithful to God? Can we trust God's timing in knowing that everything He does is for the good of us, even in the midst of our pain, in which we wish that we can stop, in which we pray to God that none of this would happen to us, wishing God to take this pain away from us? Can we just hold on just a little bit longer? Because once we arrive to our destination of healing, that may you realize that God asks us to go through those pains so that He can flesh out all the bad things that could have happened to us if we would have rushed through these painful moments. And so yeah, that actually spoke to our hearts more than anything else in today's verse. And so yeah, I hope that makes sense to you all. But yeah, now let's get back to chapter 24, where Moses is sprinkling blood onto the Israelites from the offerings that they were offering to God. And this is in the Israelites saying, "We will do everything the Lord has commanded us." That just helps me to remember. It's like it is very, very easy for us to say one thing, then does the opposite. It's like the whole phrase, like the words are cheap. Words are cheap, but actions are much harder. And so just because you claim to God that you will do everything that God has asked you to do, just because you claim that does not mean that you can actually do it. You can say one thing, but do the opposite of anything else. And it just makes me upset, because like I would rather you be honest, being like a true, like being painfully honest with me about something, than telling me a lie that sounds like what I wanted to hear, but then does the opposite of what I want you to do. Right? Does that make sense? Like, I would rather hear you tell me the painful truths than a lie that I want to hear. Or then telling me a truth, then telling me a lie that I did not know it was a lie until I found out. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's also what I wanted to respond to. And so yeah, that's kind of what I kind of got out of. And so yeah, like verses 29 of chapter 23 really stood out to me, and I hope that it stood out to you guys as well. And so yeah, may you guys go and walk with God today.